Let's begin. But I'll warn you, this won't be soft, it won't be gentle, and it won't be what you want to hear, but it will be what you need. Because since you were a child, you've been taught to look outward, to find a villain, to point the finger, to name your pain. And often, that name is your mother. But here's what almost no one has the courage to say. It's not your mother who still holds you back. It's what your mind did with her. This isn't an attack. This isn't judgment. It's truth. And truth, when spoken clearly, can shatter a lifetime of illusion in a single breath. Because the mother, she lives in your unconscious. Long after she's left the room, you've tried to move forward. You've searched for peace. But peace doesn't come when you're still fighting a war you don't even recognize. So let's name the war. Let's face what's been hiding inside. And let's do it with the strength you've always had, but never fully used. Do you know what you've been fighting all this time? Not your mother, not her words, not even her absence. You've been fighting a shadow, an image, a symbol, a presence that lives in you, but was never fully real. Carl Jung called it the mother complex, not a label, not a diagnosis, but a prison, invisible, emotional, inherited. It's the voice that criticizes you without ever speaking. It's the ache that never goes away. It's the hunger for approval you've carried since childhood. And the cruelest part, it's not even yours. It's inherited, an echo, a psychic scar passed down through generations. You wonder why you still feel stuck, why peace feels so far away, why no amount of healing seems to last. It's because you're still at war with a ghost, and ghosts don't leave until you look them in the eye. So Jung gave you a roadmap, but it starts where most of us refuse to go, inside. Not to blame, not to punish, but to see clearly. The wound isn't your fault, but the healing, it's yours, only yours. And if this content is making sense to you, then click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Every time you feel rejected, ask yourself, who am I really reacting to? The person in front of me, or the wound I haven't healed? Every time you crave unconditional love, ask yourself, do I want love, or do I want repair? Because here's the truth, most of us aren't seeking partners, we're seeking parents, and not real parents, but the fantasy of who we wish they had been. You didn't get that look, you didn't hear that word, you didn't feel that warmth. So you keep chasing it, in strangers, in lovers, in achievements, in silence. But Carl Jung warned, until you integrate the archetype of the mother, you will project her everywhere, onto partners who are nothing like her, yet make you feel the same, onto jobs, mentors, friends, anyone who can carry the burden of making you feel enough. But no one can carry that, not because they don't want to, but because it isn't theirs. Healing begins when you stop expecting others to mother you, to fill the absence, to fix what was broken. It doesn't happen when they change. It happens when you stop waiting, because the child in you still thinks it's possible, still thinks, if I'm good enough, she'll come back, but she won't. And that is where healing begins. Healing isn't about making your mother change. It's about letting go of the fantasy that one day she finally will, that she'll say the words, that she'll see the pain, that she'll finally become the version you always needed. But Carl Jung made it clear, the mother is not just a person, she's an archetype, a symbol, a psychic force. She can represent nourishment, origin, love, but also suffocation, fear, and abandonment. And when that archetype is not integrated, it becomes your shadow, the ghost behind every broken connection, every failed boundary, every person you secretly hope will fix what she couldn't. You're not choosing love, you're choosing repair. You're not choosing people, you're choosing patterns, and you'll keep doing it until you realize you don't need a better mother, You need a stronger you, a more conscious you, a more compassionate you. Because here's what Jung knew that most still resist. You don't heal by idealizing or resenting your mother. Both keep you trapped. One puts her on a pedestal, the other puts her in chains. But neither sees her as she was: human, wounded, incomplete. And the day you stop needing her to be a goddess or a villain is the day you finally start becoming someone new. The version of yourself that doesn't keep score, that doesn't wait, that doesn't stay small in the hope of being loved like a child again. That's the moment your adult self is born. So you want to break free? Start here. Watch yourself. Every time you feel rejected, ask, who am I really reacting to? The person in front of me, or the wound I haven't healed? Every time you crave unconditional love, ask, do I want love or do I want repair? Every time you abandon yourself to be accepted, ask, who abandoned me first? This is the work, not just reading, not just forgiving, not just blaming. It's sitting in silence with the child inside you, who didn't get the hug, who never heard the words, who kept waiting for someone to see them. That child is still here, still hoping, still screaming beneath your surface. And here's the trap. You've learned to silence that voice. With productivity, perfection, performance, you tell yourself you're weak if you rest. You shame yourself for crying. You demand more when what you need is comfort. That voice inside, the one that tells you, you're not enough, you should have done more, you don't deserve softness. That voice is not you. It's borrowed, it's inherited, and you've been living your whole life like it's your truth. But it's not. That voice came from pain. Yours? Maybe hers, maybe generations before. But healing starts when you stop arguing with it and start listening, not to obey, but to understand. Because the moment you see where it came from is the moment you stop mistaking it for your own. That's how you begin dismantling it, not with affirmations, not with pretending, but with a clear gaze that says, I see you, but you're not me. That's the beginning of reparenting, of becoming the mother you never had, the one who doesn't shame your tears, the one who lets you rest, the one who doesn't demand perfection to give love. You ask how to heal? Start here. When you're tired, rest. When you're sad, don't fix it, feel it. When you're afraid, don't abandon yourself, stay. This is the new language, not judgment, not discipline, not punishment, tenderness, presence, permission. It feels foreign at first, because the old system was all you knew, the whip, the silence, the inner coldness that said, you have to earn your right to exist. But that was never true. Ask yourself, how would I treat a child who went through what I did? Would you yell at them, call them weak, tell them to toughen up, or would you hold them, even for just a moment? That child is still inside you, right now, still hoping you'll come back, not someone else, not the perfect partner, not a therapist, you. And if you don't, you'll keep outsourcing your healing, keep begging for what you can only give yourself. But the moment you start, even clumsily, even late, everything shifts. You reclaim the most sacred power to care for your own soul. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Healing doesn't begin when someone finally loves you right. Healing begins when you stop abandoning yourself. Every time you override your exhaustion just to be productive, every time you silence your pain because it's too much, every time you betray your needs to avoid discomfort, that's not strength. That's self-abandonment, disguised as resilience. You've become your own authoritarian figure, the one who says, keep going, don't feel that, don't need too much, don't be a burden. But where did you learn that? Whose voice is that? It's not yours. It's a voice you inherited, a shadow of unmet needs, a survival script passed down like a haunted lullaby. Carl Jung called this the negative inner mother, the internalized critic, the emotional jailer, the part of you that repeats what was once done to you. And until you question it, you'll think it's your conscience. You'll think it's just being realistic. You'll think you're just not good enough, again. But it's not truth, it's programming. So, next time that voice appears, pause. Don't resist it. Observe it. Ask, who do you belong to? Whose fear am I carrying? Whose shame is this? And in that moment, you create a crack, a gap between you and the voice. And through that crack, light gets in. Not the light of perfection, but the light of awareness. And awareness is the beginning of liberation. This is what true psychological awakening looks like. Not mantras, not a shelf full of self-help books, not pretending to be healed. But this, the quiet moment you realize you've been living your life as a reaction to someone else's pain, that your patterns, your fears, your choices, they weren't yours, they were inherited, and now you are ready to return them. But don't rush this part, because the voice won't disappear overnight. It will fight to survive. It will whisper, "You're lazy. You're selfish. You'll be alone if you do this." That voice has kept you safe. But safety is not the same as freedom. So what do? You learn a new language, one made not of judgment, but of compassion. When you feel exhausted, rest. When you feel sad, allow it. When you feel afraid, hold yourself, not hide. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. That's how you begin remothering yourself. Because the truth is, you've waited too long for someone else to come and give you what you never received. And no one's coming. Not because people are cruel, but because it was never their job. It's yours now. And that's not a burden. It's your superpower. Because when you become the caregiver you always needed, you stop asking the world to save you. You stop performing. You stop proving. You start becoming. And from that space, everything begins to change. When you finally stop asking the world to mother you, you become something new. Not hard, not cold, but rooted. And with that root comes clarity. You begin to notice how often your inner world was ruled by a voice that never belonged to you. A voice that said, "You're not enough. You're too much. Don't feel that. Don't ask for that." That voice wasn't your truth. It was your training, an inherited script, written by the generations before you, passed down in silence, in glances, in unmet needs. But now, you see it. You see how you became your own punisher. You see how you demanded strength from yourself, when what you really needed was gentleness. You see how your own self-talk became a repetition of the same neglect you swore you'd escape. This is what Jung meant when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." But now, you're not calling it fate anymore. You're calling it out. And this is how you reclaim your voice, not by yelling louder, but by whispering to the parts of you that were never heard, by asking, "What would I say to a child who feels what I feel?" And then saying it to yourself, because that child still lives in you. And now, finally, you've stopped abandoning them for the sake of being accepted. You've come home. And the healing? It's not a future destination. It's this moment, this choice, this breath. Because when you choose yourself, you choose freedom. And here's what no one tells you. Choosing yourself doesn't always feel good. It feels unnatural at first, like wearing clothes that don't quite fit, like speaking a language you were never taught, but somehow always knew. Because for years, you survived by becoming small. You adapted, you performed, you made yourself convenient, so others wouldn't leave. And now? Now you're doing the unthinkable. You're staying with you, even when you feel unworthy. Even when that old guilt whispers, you're being selfish, You're being dramatic. You should be better by now. You hear it, but you don't obey it, because obedience to shame is not healing. It's captivity. And Carl Jung knew true liberation comes not from escaping your wounds, but from learning their language, not to glorify them, but to finally understand what they've been asking for all these years. Your inner child doesn't need a savior. It needs a witness, someone to say, I see you, I believe you, I'm not leaving. So you say it, not once, but every day, until it becomes true, because repetition is how you were wounded, and repetition is how you'll heal. One gentle act at a time, one honest boundary at a time, one moment of self-respect that no one else sees, but you feel deeply. This is your return, not to who you were, but to who you were always meant to be. And now that you've come this far, let's close this with the truth you already know, but needed someone to say out loud. You were never broken. You were burdened with emotions you were too young to name, with silence you didn't choose, with roles you didn't volunteer for. You were handed a script and told to memorize lines. That didn't reflect your soul. But today, you dropped the script. You looked at your inheritance, the pain, the guilt, the shame, and said, this ends with me. And that is the beginning of everything, because you're no longer waiting, not for her to say sorry, not for life to feel safe, not for the perfect moment to heal. You are healing now, in this mess, in this breath, in this very moment. And if this message stirred something in you, don't scroll past it. This is not entertainment. This is a mirror, a turning point. So pause here and let it land. Write in the comments, I am the end of the pattern, not for validation, but as a declaration. Like Jung said, what is not made conscious becomes fate. But today, you made it conscious. You took the unconscious inheritance and turned it into awareness. You stopped running, you turned around, you faced the pain, and you chose presence over panic, truth over illusion, love over the need to be needed. So take this with you. You are not your childhood. You are not your mother's wounds. You are not unfinished love stories. You are the rebirth, the reset, the reckoning. And now, you walk forward, not to impress, not to fix, but to live, fully, freely, finally. Subscribe if you're ready for what's next, because the next video will meet you where you are. And if no one has told you lately, we're proud of you. Depthoria continues.